So the parable that Jesus told us this morning from the gospel is really a parable that the church held very close to their hearts, the early church, and that's why we have it proclaimed to us. And the story of the rich man and the poor man. And the real problem with the rich man was not that he was rich, is he didn't love Lazarus, the poor man. He didn't care for him. He didn't take care of him. And that calls us to mind the two great commandments Jesus has given us. The two great commandments Jesus has given us. So, let's test it out. The two great commandments are... You got it. So, love God with your whole heart and soul and mind and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Those are the wonderful commandments that Jesus has given us. And those commandments really are to direct our lives and direct everything we do. And so, we are gathered in this church today, this morning, to celebrate the supper of the Lord. And in this way, we say before God that we love you. And we love you so much that we're taking the time today to be in this church to pray and to communicate with God and to let God's love continue to grow in our lives, each and every one of us. And so God responds by giving us his Son in his body and his blood. And that moment for us is a call to share in the gift of heaven. Because that's what the rich man wasn't able to do in the gospel. He wasn't able to share in the gift of heaven. The poor man was, because the poor man had still love in his heart. So that's the first commandment. The second one, as you mentioned at the very beginning of me asking, is to love your neighbor as yourself. So, who's your neighbor? Who's your neighbor? So, yeah, the superintendents have it figured out. They pointed to their neighbor already. So, who's your neighbor? Yeah, point to your neighbor. Point to your neighbor. Yeah. So the super little ones got it. Yeah. Pointing to our neighbor. And so we're called to love our classmates. All of them. And especially today, love your teachers today. So, throughout the day, as you feel moved, tell your teacher, I love you. All day today. So teachers, enjoy the day. Enjoy the day. And so when you go home, who are you called to love when you go home? Your parents or your grandparents or your guardians, yes? Yeah. And the super little ones got it. Even your brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. The little ones. And the big ones. Yeah. To love them. And that means not fighting with them when you go home, right out of the gate. And imagine, when you go home and you tell your parents and your grandparents, I love you, they're going to pass out on the floor. Because they're not going to be able to believe it. Who is this kid in front of me? No, they're going to really love it. They're going to love it. So I encourage you to do that. And God is doing the same thing for us right now. He's saying, I love you. So let's do a God love hug. A God love hug is simple. You take one arm like this, so everybody with me, and you go all the way around. And you do the other arm, just like this. There's some of the adults are not sure about this yet, but you need to be sure. And then you squeeze real tight, real tiny. That's a God love. Yeah, just like that. That's a God love. And so as we share in God's love, it's that love that we share with one another. God's love. It's that love that we share with our fellow classmates. It's that love that we share with our brothers and sisters. It's that love that we share with our teachers. It's that love that we share with our parents. And so all day today, it's about God's love and us sharing God's love. In that way, we touch heaven. In that way, we touch God's house. In that way, we celebrate God's very special love for us. And we want to spend all of our lives in God's love and all eternity in God's love. And so the gospel calls us in a special way to that special love. So during this Mass, let's open our hearts to the love of God shared to each and every one of us through his Son, Jesus Christ.